Buying a car in Carvana was so easy. I was able to finance it through them.
Whoa, wait, you mean finance?
Yeah, finance. Got pre-qualified for a Carvana auto loan, entered my terms, and shot from thousands of great car options all within my budget.
That's cool, but financing through Carvana was so easy.
Financed. Done. And I get to pick up my car from their Carvana vending machine tomorrow.
Financed.
Right, that's what I said.
You can spend time trying to pronounce financing, or you can actually finance and buy your car today on
Carvana.
Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
And he was standing by my feet, but he's kind of crouched down. He's bent over by my feet, like he's trying to look into my face, like to see if I'm awake.
Welcome to Tell Me a Ghost Story, the late night call-in podcast where we delve into the world of the supernatural and explore the eerie and unexplained. I'm your host, Michelle Newman. This podcast features true stories from our callers that will send shivers down your spine and leave you questioning the existence of the afterlife. So grab a cozy blanket, turn down the lights.
Hey, Michelle, this is Anna. I'm calling from Tacoma, Washington. When my aunt passed away, I inherited a bunch of her old houseware, including this heavy glass ashtray, and I never used it, but for whatever reason, I kept it tucked away. I never used it. I was never a smoker or anything. And then last spring, I was digging through that same cupboard for some paperwork, and I found my ashtray, and it was spotless. It looked like it had been washed and forgotten. I sat down on the dining table while I was searching, and that distracted, and I went outside and started gardening and was doing that for maybe an hour. And when I came back in, the ashtray, which had been completely clean, now had a heap of cigarette ash. No butts, just piles of gray ash, as though someone had been sitting there chain smoking. The air had a faint, stale cigarette smell, not overwhelming, but enough to like catching your nose. And of course, I went around and I checked all the doors were locked. The windows were locked. I checked every room, even the basement, no sign of a break-in, nothing missing, and I kept telling myself I just overlooked it, but I didn't. And I ended up dumping it in a Ziploc bag, and yes, I still have it. Don't ask me why. I guess some part of me thought if I held on to it, maybe we'd run some tests someday, and I figure, I might figure out what really happened.
Thank you, Anna. It is pretty weird having a clean ashtray and then coming back to one full of gray ash. You did everything right. You checked the doors, windows, even the basement. And what's left is an object that shouldn't have changed, but it did. People often tell stories of houses that keep the habits of their former residents. The smell of pipe tobacco in a study, a rocking chair that creaks when no one's sitting in it. Maybe your aunt was paying a little visit.
My name is Marshall. I'm from St. Cloud, Florida. And I recently just woken out of bed and like 2 in the morning. It's like 2:40 right now, and I'm laying on the couch, and what happened was I got up, I was thirsty, couldn't fall asleep, honestly, but I went to take some melatonin gummies, and I was heading back to my room to go lay back in my bed, and my door just slammed shut on me. There had to be some unknown force. And I can't really speak right now because I'm still shook. And I feel how cold it is in my room. And I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it. But yeah, I don't know what to do. Please reach back.
Thank you for calling in, Marshall, because this is the perfect reminder that the Tell Me a Ghost Story hotline isn't for emergencies. I cannot help you in the moment at all. If you are having an emergency and you feel unsafe, I would call the police. I think you'd be surprised how often the police deal with the unknown. If you feel unsafe calling the police, an alternative would be to just get out of the space. Go to a 24-hour diner, grocery store, gas station. Be around people. Door slams are classic poltergeist light territory. Not necessarily malicious, but authoritative. I mean, Marshall, if this keeps up, simple check, weather stripping, hinge lubrication, HVAC pressure are practical first steps. Maybe you're on the wrong dose of melatonin. But you're not wrong to be shaken.
Hey, my name's Donnie. I'm from New Mexico. I'm a hospice nurse. I was with a patient that was about to pass, and they did. So I wrote like the time of death and all that down, and I just making preparations to discuss with the family and everything, and just getting ready to notify. And I heard this thank you in the patient's voice, then a cold breeze coming from the window nearby, and I said, "You're welcome," and then just stood there for a minute and remembered that I was talking to an empty room. Thanks, love the show. I got many more stories.
Thank you, Donnie. Hospice calls often give us the most tender moments. You were there for a crossing, doing the work, and the voice was grateful. If you've got more, Donnie, put them on the line. Hospice stories are some of the clearest, most human things we hear.
Hey, my name's Julia, and I'm wondering if anyone else has experienced this, because my son just started kindergarten, and he's been coming home really tired, and I've been catching him talking in his room at night and thought he was playing with toys. But like recently I've heard him talking in there, and I asked him about it in the morning, and he said he's been, and I quote, that he's been talking to the lady in the corner. And then he describes her as wearing old clothes like the pictures in Grandma's house, and that she smiles but doesn't move. Then he says, "She told me not to tell you." So I don't know if it's just his imagination, or if he's picked it up from TV, or if kids just really see stuff that we can't, which I is possible. But I'm just wondering if anyone else has experienced something similar with kids. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Julia. Kids see a lot of things adults don't. When your son says he's talking to a lady in Grandma's style of clothes, and she told me not to tell you, you hit the knot of parental dread and curiosity. Children are often our cleanest sensors for ghost stories. Across the worlds of folklore, kids are more likely to report encounters with ancestral presences, guardian spirits, residual echoes of traumatic events. In some indigenous and rural traditions, there are very specific rules. You honor the visiting soul with an offering. In a modern context, I'd say the advice is gentler. Listen without fear. Document details. What does she look like? What does she say? Keep an eye on tone. If the child describes harm or the figure grows aggressive, seek support. If she's only gentle and curious, sometimes acknowledging and setting gentle boundaries is probably going to be enough. But be sure to call into the hotline and tell me what happens.
Hey, my name's Jimmy. I used to work in Hollywood, and there's this actor, this super famous actor, and I can't reveal his name. But he has some of the craziest, darkest energy I have ever been around. And multiple people would also verify this on set that have worked with him. And he can be as polite and as nice as anyone. But when the guy walks in, it's like a dark cloud just settles in the room and it just kills all the vibes on set. I was around a while, so these rumors started to circulate that he'd actually sold his soul to the devil because he'd gotten famous so quickly. He started having all these weird tragedies in his life too. And I don't know if I believe that he sold his soul to the devil, but I was around the guy. Something was definitely like attached to him. I've never felt energy like that, and it still gives me the chills to think about.
Thank you, Jimmy. The Hollywood rumor mills love a Faustian headline. I live in Los Angeles, and I could list possible actors from this story all day. A dark cloud that follows a person. I mean, addiction can do this. And addictions can run in families, which can look like a curse as well. But you say multiple people felt it, and that's an important detail. Collective sensing. When a whole room reports a sudden drop in a mood, that's harder to explain away. If you hear more about that person, pass it along. But I wouldn't be surprised if you run into more than one.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona. I've called a couple times with a couple of my stories. This one is about an experience I've had at work. I started working at a podiatry office. We had 2 locations, one in Chandler, one in Gilbert. But I started working at the one in Gilbert, and it was a pretty big office. It was actually too big for the amount of patients and doctors we had. But there'd be times where I'd walk down the hall. We had this room at the end of the hall, and that's where we kept our DME supplies, our walking boots, splints, things like that. But every time I walked by, I would always see from the corner of my eye a man standing. And then I'd turn around and go look, and there'd be nobody in there. And that kept happening. And I was the new person there. I didn't really say anything. And after a while, it was just like there was somebody there. I knew there was somebody there. And I told some of the girls that worked there. They're like, oh, yeah, there's something here. And they didn't go into any detail. But it was always like that from the corner of my eye. Like even at night when I would always be the last one there, it would be nighttime already. I would shut off the lights and I would take off running down the hall, and I wouldn't even look anywhere but straight ahead because I was afraid I'd see somebody standing in the rooms. And being there at night in the dark, that's not somewhere I wanted to be and see something like that. And one day, it was lunchtime. It was a podiatry office, so we had nice little reclining chairs. It was podiatry. And on my lunch breaks, I used to nap. And one day I was napping in the room I usually nap in for lunch. And I had my feet up, and I was in a pretty deep sleep. And while I was sleeping, I kind of felt like I opened my eyes, and the room was dark, but I opened my eyes. And in the room, like towards my feet, at the end of the recliner that I was sleeping on, was a man. And I remember exactly how he looks. He was really tall. He was really thin. He was wearing like basketball shorts, and a little jersey type thing. And he was standing by my feet, but he's kind of crouched down. He's bent over by my feet, like he's trying to look into my face, like to see if I'm awake. And I got so startled. I remember I jumped out of the chair, and he was gone just like that. But I know what I saw. Like he was clear as day. Like he was at my foot. Like he's trying to look at my face. I felt like he was looking to see if I'm awake or not. I ran out, and nobody was in the office. I was so upset. After that, I told everybody, if I'm napping and you guys are leaving for lunch, you gotta let me know. After that, I was too scared to nap anymore if I was alone in the office. So even after that, and I would nap and other people were there, I still kept the door open, but never in that room. And I know there was something there because I continued to see something from the corner of my eye. And I know one of the other girls I worked with, she had seen something. She had seen something pretty bad. She never went into detail. She refused to tell us the story of what she saw. But for her to not speak of it, it was pretty bad, which I do believe her, just from my experiences there. Anyway, that's it for this one. I do have many more. I'll call back another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for calling in again. A tall, thin man at your feet while you nap with basketball shorts on is the kind of image that lodges deep in your ribs. And the corner of your eye sightings during the day make it worse, because they're an ever-present watcher. Also, it's interesting when other coworkers refuse to tell details. Treat that as data. There might be something in that office that doesn't want to be named. That's all we have this week, folks. Do you have a ghost story? Call 701-484-2666. That's 701-484-2666. Or go to tellmeaghoststory.com and leave your story there. Thank you to all the callers who left messages this week. And as always, I'm your host, Michelle Newman, signing off. See you next week.